Oh my God. It's embarrassing. If we are going to be together, she have to wear her wig. She's not gonna go with her short hair.
I'm hurt, and now I feel ugly, and I feel unwanted and unloved.
You have to be wearing your wig when we are meeting my friends or meeting people.
Danny was talking to another girl on social media. At the same time, he was talking to me. Be honest, because I will walk out if you're not. I'm sitting here wondering, is he a scam artist? Is he after me for my money? I just don't think he's telling me the full truth. I think he's giving me little nibbles.
Lisa walking into that lobby without her wig should have been one of those small, vulnerable moments where a man who claims he loves her proves that the love is bigger than the image, bigger than the style, bigger than whatever version of her made him comfortable before, but Daniel's face told a different story before his words even had time to make it worse, because the second he saw her real hair, the energy changed, and that is where this stopped being about a wig and started becoming about whether Lisa was actually loved or just being managed. And that is what makes the moment so uncomfortable to watch. Because Lisa did not take the wig off to start drama, she did not do it to embarrass him, she did not do it as some kind of public test, she took it off because she was uncomfortable. Her scalp was hurting, her head was itching, the glue was becoming painful, and at some point even the strongest fantasy has to deal with the basic reality that a person cannot keep suffering just to protect someone else's preference, but instead of seeing pain, Daniel saw a problem. And instead of asking if she was okay, he acted like her. Natural appearance was an inconvenience to him. That reaction matters. Because Lisa already knew this could hurt her, she already carried that fear before she ever stepped in front of him, and the sad part is that she was not asking for some perfect movie scene response, she was basically hoping for a little softness, a little reassurance. A simple sign that the man who wanted to marry her could still look at her with care when she was not dressed exactly the way he preferred, but Daniel gave her the opposite. And once he called it embarrassing, the damage was not cosmetic anymore, it was emotional. Because when someone is already scared to be seen, and then the person closest to them confirms the fear, that does not just sting, it rewrites the room. It makes every earlier compliment feel conditional, every romantic promise feel weaker, every big public declaration feels suspicious. And suddenly Lisa is not just standing there without a wig, she is standing there with the truth pressing against her, wondering if Daniel loved her, or if he loved the version of her that looked better beside him, made him look good in front of friends, and kept his life moving in the direction he wanted. And Daniel did not stop at a bad facial reaction, which would have been bad enough, because human beings have somehow mastered the art of making terrible moments worse. By continuing to speak, he then turned his discomfort into a rule, telling her that if they were going to meet his friends or be around people, she needed to wear the wig, and that is where the control starts showing. Because this is not just one man having a preference, this is a man trying to decide when Lisa is acceptable for public view. That is the line viewers have to pay attention to. Because dislike is one thing, embarrassment is another, but regulation is the real warning sign, and when Daniel moves from reacting to instructing, from judging to controlling, from saying what he feels to telling Lisa how she must appear, around others, the relationship shifts into something much colder than a couple having an awkward beauty moment. Because now, Lisa's comfort is being weighed against Daniel's image, and Daniel's image is winning. The painful part is, Lisa still wants to believe there is love underneath it, because when people have invested this much emotionally, they do not always walk away when the red flag appears. Sometimes they stare at it and try to convince themselves it is just bad lighting, and that is exactly what makes this moment so dangerous for her, because Daniel does not need to be perfect for Lisa to stay. He only needs to give her just enough reassurance after the damage to make her doubt her own reaction. But the audience can see the pattern forming before Lisa fully says it out loud, because if Daniel is this harsh when she changes something as personal as her hair, what happens when the issue is bigger? What happens when the disagreement involves money, honesty, his past, or the other people he may have been talking to? And what happens when Lisa realizes that the same man who can celebrate her when she fits the image can shame her the second she becomes inconvenient? That is why this opening moment has to sit heavy, because it is not a small insult floating in the middle of an episode. It is the first crack in the story Lisa wanted to believe, and once she sees Daniel look embarrassed by the real her, every other question comes rushing back in. The money, the fast proposal, the warnings, the friends, the other American woman, and the terrifying possibility that Daniel's love may not be love at all, but a performance that only works when Lisa stays useful, obedient, and presentable. And the worst part is that Lisa does not even get to process the hurt privately before Daniel starts deciding what should happen next, because he is already thinking about his friends, his public image, and how she will look around other people, while Lisa is sitting inside a completely different kind of pain, the kind that makes someone feel ugly, unwanted, and foolish for ever hoping they would be accepted without conditions, and once that feeling enters a relationship, it does not leave quietly. So when Daniel says she needs the wig around his friends and family, he may think he is only talking about appearance, but what he really does is hand Lisa a new question she cannot ignore anymore. Because if he is embarrassed by her natural hair now, then what else is he embarrassed by? What else is he hiding? What else has he been tolerating only because she gives him something he wants? And how long before Lisa realizes that this was never just about what was on her head, but about how much of herself she would be forced to cover just to keep Daniel comfortable? Daniel's reaction to Lisa without the wig did not create a brand new doubt in her mind. It woke up doubts that were already sitting there quietly, waiting for one ugly moment to give them permission to speak. Because before that lobby scene ever happened, before Daniel's face dropped, before he started talking about embarrassment and what she needed to wear around his friends, Lisa had already been surrounded by warning signs, and the most uncomfortable part is that some of the clearest warnings were not even coming from strangers online. They were coming from her own daughter. Faith sees the situation from a distance, and sometimes distance is exactly what makes the truth easier to recognize, because Lisa is emotionally inside the relationship, hoping every grand gesture means love, hoping every sweet word means commitment, hoping every dramatic promise means Daniel is serious, while Faith is looking at the same situation and asking the basic question Lisa keeps avoiding: if Lisa is sending him money, if Lisa is helping him financially, if Lisa is the one working long hours to support this dream, then how exactly is Daniel suddenly able to create these romantic moments that make him look like the perfect fiancé? That is the part that quietly humiliates Lisa, because the parade, the proposal, the big emotional display, all of it looks romantic on the surface, but Faith forces the uncomfortable math into the room, and once the math is there, the romance starts looking different. Because if Lisa is helping fund Daniel's life, then Daniel's gestures may not be proof of sacrifice. They may be proof that Lisa is impressed by something she helped make possible, and that is a brutal thing to realize when you have been treating the moment like evidence that someone loves you. And this is where the story becomes more complicated than Lisa being hurt and Daniel being cruel, because Lisa is not completely blind. She has seen things, she has heard things, she has felt the gaps, but she keeps choosing the version of the story that hurts less. And that is very human, very messy, and very inconvenient for everyone who wants reality TV people to make rational decisions while being filmed under emotional pressure. Because Lisa is not only afraid Daniel might be using her, she is also afraid that if she questions him too hard, the fantasy may collapse before she is ready to live without it. Faith's concern matters because she reacts to the engagement with worry, not celebration. And that tells us something important. Because when a daughter hears that her mother has accepted a proposal, the natural hope is that she would feel happy, relieved, maybe emotional in a good way. But Faith hears the details and sees speed, dependence, money, and uncertainty, and instead of joining the fairy tale, she starts checking the foundation. Because from her side, Daniel's love is moving suspiciously fast, while Lisa's questions are moving painfully slow. That speed is one of the biggest red flags in the entire situation, because Daniel does not seem to know the full truth about Lisa's life, Lisa does not seem to know the full truth about Daniel's past, and yet marriage is already on the table like trust has been built brick by brick. When? Really, it feels more like everyone is standing on wet cement and pretending it has dried, and Faith can feel that instability even when Lisa is trying to dress it up as romance. But Lisa has her own reason for staying quiet, and this is where the emotional tension gets sharper, because she is not only avoiding Daniel's red flags, she is also carrying truths of her own that she has not fully dealt with, and that creates a strange kind of silence between them, where Daniel's past stays blurry because Lisa does not want to push too hard, and Lisa's past stays softened because she fears what honesty might cost her, so both people are moving toward marriage while important pieces of the truth are still being handled like dangerous objects. That is why Faith becomes the voice Lisa does not want, but probably needs. Because Faith is not seduced by Daniel's performance, she is not sitting there trying to be chosen by him, she is not depending on his approval to feel wanted, and because of that, she can ask the question Lisa keeps. Stepping around, is this man building a life with her, or is he building a better life because of her? And Lisa's problem is that she wants Daniel's love to be real so badly that she keeps lowering the standard of proof. So a proposal becomes proof, a parade becomes proof, his friends approving becomes proof, his sweet words become proof, but every time the evidence gets tested, something feels off. Because love that needs financial support, appearance control, fast commitment, and unfinished truth starts looking less like devotion and more like a deal nobody wants to admit is a deal. Faith may not have all the answers, but she understands the danger of Lisa confusing attention with commitment, and that is where the audience starts leaning forward. Because if Faith is already worried before Lisa even confronts Daniel's friends, then what happens when Lisa finally sits at the table with the people who know Daniel best, and instead of hearing about his heart, his loyalty, or his love, she hears exactly what Faith was afraid of all along. When Lisa finally sits down with Daniel's friends, she is not walking into a casual meetup. She is walking into a room hoping somebody close to Daniel will accidentally tell the truth that Daniel keeps polishing. Because after the wig moment, after the embarrassment, after Faith's warnings, after the fast proposal and the money questions, Lisa is no longer simply trying to be accepted by his circle. She is trying to figure out whether his circle sees her as Daniel's future wife or Daniel's way out. And the difference between those two things is exactly where the tension starts to tighten. At first, the meeting looks like it should comfort her, because Daniel's friends are friendly enough, they seem happy that Lisa is there, they talk like they approve of the relationship, and that kind of approval can feel powerful when someone is already insecure. But the problem is not that. They praise Lisa. The problem is what they choose to praise her for. Because instead of talking about how Daniel lights up around her, how loyal he has become, how serious he seems, or how much emotional stability she brings him, they immediately point toward how she has changed his life in practical, visible, material ways. And that is where the love story starts sounding less like romance and more like an invoice nobody wants to read out loud. Because Daniel's friends describe how things were before Lisa, how he had less, how his clothes were different, how his life looked smaller, and then they look at him now. As if Lisa's presence is proven by what she has upgraded, and for Lisa, that should not feel like comfort, it should feel like a receipt being printed right in front of her face, because the first thing Daniel's friends highlight is not the bond, it is the benefit. That is exactly what Faith was trying to warn her about, only now Lisa is hearing it from inside Daniel's world, not from outside it. And that matters, because Faith could be dismissed as protective, suspicious, emotional, or worried because she is Lisa's daughter, but Daniel's own friends are. Harder to dismiss, because they are not trying to attack him, they are trying to praise him. And still the words they choose make the relationship sound like Lisa entered Daniel's life and lifted him financially before anyone proves that Daniel lifted Lisa emotionally. And Lisa can feel that imbalance, even if she does not fully want to name it yet, because she tells them that helping Daniel is not easy, that she works long hours, that there is a cost behind all of this, and that detail matters because it cuts through the fantasy, because while Daniel's friends may see the glow-up, the better clothes, the improved situation, the more polished version of Daniel sitting in front of them, Lisa knows there is exhaustion behind it. There is work behind it. There is sacrifice behind it. And there may even be debt, stress, and pressure sitting underneath the romance like a bill waiting to be paid. So the question becomes uglier. Is Lisa being loved, or is Lisa being used so politely that everyone can pretend it is love? And that is why this scene is so uncomfortable. Because no one has to say anything openly cruel for the room to feel wrong. The danger is in the pattern, in the way. Daniel's value seems to rise because of what Lisa gives, while Lisa's value seems to be measured by how much she keeps giving, and if that is the foundation, then marriage is not the happy ending, it is the legal paperwork on top of a very shaky emotional deal. The strange part is that Lisa came there looking for answers about Daniel's past, but before she even gets to the past, the present starts answering for him. Because his friends make it obvious that Lisa is important to Daniel's life, but they do not make it obvious that Daniel is emotionally devoted to Lisa as a person. And that gap is everything, because there is a huge difference between saying someone changed your life and saying you love them for who they are, and Daniel's circle seems much more comfortable with the first version. That is where Lisa's suspicion starts connecting to the unnamed American woman who warned her, because suddenly that warning does not feel like random jealousy or online drama. It starts fitting into the shape of what Lisa is already seeing, because if Daniel has talked to other American women, if another woman claimed he was saying the same kind of things, if she warned Lisa that Daniel was looking for opportunity more than love, then this meeting with his friends gives Lisa a reason to re-examine the warning instead of burying it under wishful thinking. And the hardest thing for Lisa is that she is asking Daniel's loyal friends to help her judge Daniel, which is one of those human decisions that sounds hopeful and collapses under basic logic, because these are not neutral witnesses. They are not investigators. They are not people with no stake. In the outcome, they are Daniel's circle, they know him, they care about him, they have seen his life improve, and if Lisa's money, attention, and possible future plans benefit Daniel, then why would they risk blowing that up by giving Lisa a reason to leave? That does not mean every friend is lying, and it does not prove every concern is true, but it does mean Lisa is in a weak position, because she wants honesty from people who have every reason to soften, dodge, laugh, or protect, and when the conversation starts feeling awkward, when the eye contact gets strange, when the answers feel too smooth or too vague, the audience starts asking the same thing Lisa is asking inside her own head. Are they reassuring her because there is nothing to worry about, or are they reassuring her because the truth would cost Daniel too much? And that is the moral tension of this scene, because viewers can look at Lisa and feel bad for her, but also feel frustrated by her, because she is finally asking the right questions, but she is asking them after the proposal, after the money, after the warning, after the wig humiliation, after. So many moments where the answer may have already been trying to introduce itself, and still she is sitting there hoping someone else will hand her certainty, as if truth is going to arrive nicely wrapped, because she has been brave enough to ask for it. Daniel's friends may think they are helping by repeating that Lisa changed his life, but every time they say it, the relationship sounds less romantic. Because if the strongest evidence of Lisa's importance is that Daniel has better things now, then Lisa is not hearing proof of love. She is hearing proof of access, proof of improvement, proof of dependency. And maybe that is why the scene feels so tense even when nobody is shouting, because the words are polite, but the meaning underneath them is sharp. Then Lisa brings the conversation closer to Daniel's hidden past, and that is when the emotional pressure changes again. Because now this is not only about money, clothes, support, or what Lisa has done for him. It is about whether Daniel has been honest about who he was before her and who else he may have been pursuing while building this relationship. And the unnamed American woman becomes the shadow over the table, because if that woman was telling the truth, then Lisa is not special in the way Daniel wants her to believe. She may simply be the one who answered, stayed, paid, believed, and made the trip. That possibility is what makes the whole meeting feel heavier, because Lisa's fear is no longer just that Daniel is embarrassed by her without the wig, it is that Daniel may have been performing affection the entire time, adjusting his words for whoever could give him the future he wanted. And once that thought enters her mind, every compliment becomes suspicious, every reassurance becomes thinner, and every smile from his friends starts looking less like support and more like cover. So by the end of this moment, Lisa is not comforted. She is more alert, because Daniel's friends have given her praise, but not the kind of praise that heals the fear. They have given her approval, but not the kind that proves love, and they have given Daniel protection, but not the kind that clears his name. And now, Lisa is sitting in the middle of a room full of people who know Daniel better than she does, realizing that the more they talk about how much she changed his life, the more she has to wonder whether changing his life was the only reason he wanted her in it. And that is where the next question becomes impossible to avoid, because the wig exposed Daniel's embarrassment, Faith exposed the financial concern, and Daniel's friends may have just exposed the transaction hiding inside the romance, but the real pressure is still coming, because Lisa is about to push Daniel on the other American women, and this time, he cannot hide behind compliments, friends, or big romantic gestures without making himself look even more guilty. Lisa finally reaches the point where soft answers are not enough anymore. And that matters, because for most of this story, she has been trying to survive on fragments, on little reassurances, on whatever version of Daniel's explanation allows her to keep believing the relationship is still real. But after the wig humiliation, After Faith's warning, after Daniel's friends kept talking about how much Lisa changed his life, the question is no longer sitting quietly in the background. It is standing right in front of her, asking whether Daniel loves Lisa or whether Daniel loves the life Lisa can help him reach. And the reason this confrontation feels different is because Lisa is not only asking about one suspicious message or one woman online, she is asking about a pattern that has started to form around Daniel. Because Daniel can explain one thing away. He can say the wig comment came out wrong. He can say his friends were only trying to praise her. He can say the money does not mean what people think it means. He can say another American woman misunderstood him. But when all of those pieces start lining up in the same direction, Lisa has to decide whether she is seeing random misunderstandings or a warning sign that finally got tired of being ignored. That is why the other American woman becomes such a dangerous part of the story. Because she is not just some background detail, she is the piece that makes Lisa wonder if she was ever truly special to Daniel, or if she was simply the woman who stayed long enough, believed hard enough, sent enough support, and made the trip that others did not. And the possibility hits differently because Daniel's whole romantic argument depends on Lisa believing she is the one, not just one of many Americans he may have entertained while looking for a better future. Daniel tries to keep the situation under control by making the contacts sound harmless, like talking to other American women does not automatically mean betrayal, and to be fair, talking alone is not proof of a scam, because human beings do communicate without signing a villain contract every time they open an app. But Lisa is not reacting to communication in isolation. She is reacting to communication combined with financial dependence, combined with fast commitment, combined with vague answers, combined with friends who seem more focused on what Lisa provides than who Lisa is, and combined with Daniel's own nervous energy when the questions get too specific. That nervousness is where the room starts shifting, because Daniel can say Lisa is the only woman he wants. He can say the others were just friends. He can say he never felt the same way about anyone else, but when his body looks less calm than his words, when the answers feel rehearsed but not complete, when his confidence flickers the second the question becomes direct, Lisa starts noticing the gap between what Daniel is saying and how Daniel is behaving, and sometimes that gap tells the audience more than the answer itself. The uncomfortable truth is that Lisa does not need Daniel to confess everything for the tension to rise, because the scene is built on partial truth, and partial truth is sometimes more frustrating than a clean lie, because a clean lie can be exposed, but a partial truth keeps moving, keeps changing shape, keeps giving the person just enough reality to sound honest while hiding the part that would change everything, and that is exactly why Lisa starts feeling like Daniel is giving her little pieces instead of the full picture. She is not only asking, did you talk to other American women? She is really asking, were you saying the same things to them? Were you building the same dream with them? Were you looking for love or looking for access? Did I become your fiancé because we have something rare, or because I was? The person willing to believe the performance after others saw through it. And that is a brutal question for any relationship, because once someone has to ask whether they were chosen or simply selected, the romance is already in trouble. Daniel's defense gets even more revealing when he leans into what Lisa has done for him, because he points to how she picked him up, helped him, clothed him, fed him, supported him, and he seems to think that proves he would not play with her. But that logic is exactly what makes the situation feel more suspicious. Because he is not proving that he loves Lisa, he is proving that losing Lisa would be a bad deal for him, and there is a difference so large it could have its own airport terminal. Someone can protect a relationship because they value the person, and someone can protect a relationship because the person is useful. And Daniel's argument risks making Lisa feel like the second one is true, because instead of saying, I would not hurt you because I love you, because I respect you, because I chose you, because your trust matters to me, he points to the fact that Lisa has improved his life, and whether he means to or not, he makes the relationship sound like something he would be foolish to lose, rather than something he is emotionally devoted to preserving. That is the moment where the power starts to shift, because earlier Daniel had the upper hand emotionally, Lisa was nervous about his approval, Lisa put the wig back on despite the pain, Lisa was still trying to earn comfort from the person who embarrassed her. But now, she is asking the questions, and Daniel is the one trying to explain himself, and once Lisa realizes that she can still walk away, even after the proposal, even after the trip, even after the public gestures, Daniel's confidence starts looking less solid. His friends make that pressure worse instead of better, because their reactions do not fully calm the room, and when serious questions are met with awkward smiles, uncomfortable laughter, or energy that feels too light for the weight of what Lisa is asking, it can make the whole situation feel even more dismissive, because Lisa is trying to understand whether her future marriage is built on truth, and the people around Daniel seem unable or unwilling to treat her fear with the seriousness it deserves. Now, this is where the audience can split, because some viewers may say Lisa should have known better, that the signs were there from the start, that Faith warned her, that Daniel's behavior was obvious, and that asking his friends for truth was never going to work, while others may see Lisa as someone who is finally trying to face reality after being emotionally pulled into a situation that gave her just enough affection to keep her hopeful, and both reactions can exist at the same time, because Lisa can be responsible for ignoring red flags and still be hurt by the people who benefited from her ignoring them. That moral tension is what keeps this section from becoming a simple good person versus bad person story. Because Lisa is not powerless, she has agency, she has questions, she has doubts, she has the ability to leave, but she is also emotionally invested. An emotional investment makes people negotiate with evidence they would tell anyone else to run from, which is why this confrontation feels so unstable, because Lisa is not only testing Daniel, she is testing her own willingness to stop protecting the version of Daniel she wanted him to be. Daniel's biggest problem is that every answer he gives now has to fight against the bigger pattern, and that is a very hard battle to win, because when Lisa asks whether he is after her money, that question does not come from nowhere. It comes from the way his friends praised her financial impact, the way he reacted to her appearance, the way his life seems to have improved through her support, the way another woman warned her, and the way he suddenly seems careful when asked about other Americans. So even if Daniel denies everything, the denial has to be stronger than the pattern. And right now, it is not. The deeper issue is that Daniel may be trying to prove he is not a scammer. But Lisa is starting to ask a more painful question than that, because even if he is not running some perfectly planned scheme, even if some feelings are real, even if he does care about her in some way, does he care about her enough to be honest, enough to respect her, enough to stop controlling how she appears in public, enough to value her when she is not giving money, opportunity, or access? And that is the part he cannot answer with a nervous smile or a sweet sentence. This is where Lisa's fear becomes sharper, because she knows Daniel has a reason to keep her. And knowing someone has a reason to keep you is not the same as knowing someone loves you, because a person can hold on tightly to a lifeline without loving the hand attached to it. And once Lisa starts wondering whether she is the woman Daniel wants or the resource Daniel cannot afford to lose, the whole engagement begins to feel less romantic and more dangerous. And Daniel may think he has survived the conversation by denying the worst of it, by insisting Lisa is the only one, by letting his friends back him up, by trying to turn his dependence into proof of loyalty, but the real damage is already done, because Lisa has finally asked the question that changes everything. She is no longer just wondering why he hated the wig, she is wondering whether the wig moment was the first honest reaction in a relationship full of performance, and now that she has seen that possibility, she cannot unsee it. So the confrontation does not end with a clean answer, because clean answers would be too convenient for a story this messy. It ends with Lisa caught between the truth she wants and the truth she may already know, and that is the most painful position of all, because Daniel can keep talking, his friends can keep smiling, the romance can keep pretending to stand, but Lisa has finally reached the question underneath every red flag, and the only thing left is whether she will believe the pattern in front of her or keep waiting for Daniel to confess what his behavior may have already said. By the end of this whole mess, the real question is not whether Daniel likes Lisa's short hair, because that answer already looks painfully clear. The real question is whether Daniel's love can survive when Lisa stops performing the version of herself that makes his life easier, makes his image cleaner, makes his friends more comfortable, and keeps the benefits of the relationship flowing in his direction. Because the wig was never just a wig, it was the first thing Lisa removed that forced Daniel to respond to the real person underneath the presentation, and his response did not protect her, it exposed him. That is what makes the moment so much bigger than an awkward comment about appearance, because Daniel's reaction becomes the doorway into every other doubt Lisa has been trying to push away, and once that door opens, everything starts walking through it. Faith's concern about the money, the fast proposal, Daniel's friends praising how much Lisa changed his life, the unnamed American woman warning her that Daniel may have said similar things before, the fact that Daniel has talked to other American women, and the way his own defense sounds less like romance and more like a man, explaining why losing Lisa would be inconvenient. And that distinction is the whole story, because Daniel may care about keeping Lisa, but caring about keeping someone is not the same as loving them in the way they need to be loved, and this is where people get trapped all the time, because intensity can look like devotion, urgency can look like commitment, dependence can look like attachment, and someone not wanting to lose you can feel very close to love until you realize they may be afraid of losing what you provide more than they are afraid of losing who you are. Lisa's pain is not only that Daniel embarrassed her without the wig, it is that the embarrassment confirmed a fear she already carried, that his acceptance might have conditions, that his affection might be strongest when she looks a certain way, acts a certain way, pays a certain way, and keeps herself inside the version of the relationship that benefits him, and once Lisa sees that, even a compliment from Daniel does not land the same way anymore, because now every sweet word has to compete with the memory of his face when she showed up as herself. That is why Daniel's demand that she wear the wig around friends and family matters so much, because it takes the issue out of private preference and into public control, and a relationship becomes dangerous emotionally when one person's comfort has to be sacrificed to protect the other person's image. Because Lisa was physically uncomfortable, she was dealing with irritation, pain, and embarrassment of her own, and instead of Daniel making space for that discomfort, he made his social embarrassment the center of the moment, which says more than he probably meant to say. Then, Faith's warning slides back into focus, and suddenly her concern no longer sounds like a daughter being negative or overprotective. It sounds like the outside voice that saw the financial imbalance before Lisa wanted to admit it, because Faith was not looking at Daniel's romantic gestures. Through Lisa's hope, she was looking at the numbers, the money, the support, the speed, the proposal, and the way Lisa seemed impressed by things that may have been built on Lisa's own sacrifice. And that is the kind of truth people hate hearing, because it makes the fairy tale feel like paperwork. The friends make that even harder to ignore, because when Daniel's circle talks about Lisa, they keep circling back to how she transformed his life, and on the surface that sounds flattering, but underneath it feels cold, because they are not clearly describing a love story, they are describing an upgrade. They are not proving Daniel cherishes Lisa's heart, they are proving Lisa has been useful to Daniel's situation, and that difference is small enough for denial to hide inside it, but big enough to change everything once Lisa hears it clearly. That is where the relationship starts feeling less like two people choosing each other, and more like one person being valued for what she can change, and that is not a small thing. Because if Lisa's greatest value in Daniel's world is that she improved his clothing, his comfort, his status, his future, and maybe his access to America, then the question becomes painfully simple. What happens when Lisa cannot provide those things anymore? What happens when the money gets tight? What happens when the dream becomes complicated? What happens when she is not wearing the wig, not smiling? Through the doubt, not funding the fantasy, and not making everyone around Daniel feel like his life is moving upward. That is why the unnamed American woman's warning becomes harder to dismiss now, because earlier, Lisa could treat it like jealousy, misunderstanding, or online noise, but after everything else, it starts fitting into a pattern, and that is the problem Daniel cannot easily talk his way out of. Because one warning can be explained, one message can be minimized, one awkward reaction can be excused, one friend's comment can be softened, but when all of it starts pointing toward the same fear, Lisa does not need a perfect confession to start questioning the whole relationship. And that is where the final emotional clarity lands, because the strongest point is not that Daniel has been proven guilty of every fear Lisa has. The strongest point is that Lisa has enough evidence to stop blindly trusting him. And those are not the same thing, because this story does not. need to turn Daniel into a cartoon villain for the danger to be real, he does not have to be running some perfect, organized plan for Lisa to be emotionally unsafe. He can still be benefiting from her, still controlling her, still hiding enough truth to protect himself, still valuing the relationship for what it gives him, and still damaging her in ways she cannot keep explaining away. That is the part many viewers may miss if they only argue over whether Daniel is a scammer, because the scammer question is loud, but the emotional question is deeper. Does Daniel respect Lisa when she is vulnerable? Does he value her when she is not performing? Does he tell the truth when the truth could cost him? Does he protect her dignity when his image is on the line? Does he love her as a person, or does he love the version of life that comes with her? And right now, Daniel's behavior gives Lisa every reason to doubt the answer. Lisa also has to face her own role in this, because she cannot keep outsourcing the truth to Faith, to Daniel's friends, to another American woman, or to Daniel's nervous explanations, and then act shocked when the answer keeps coming back incomplete, because at some point the pattern is the evidence. And if she keeps waiting for Daniel to say the perfect sentence that confirms everything, she may stay stuck in the relationship long after the truth has already arrived through his actions, which is usually how people get trapped. Not by one huge lie, but by 100 small moments they keep reinterpreting, because leaving would hurt too much. And this is what makes the wig moment so haunting by the end, because it begins as a beauty insecurity and ends as a relationship diagnosis. Because Daniel did not just react badly to short hair, he showed Lisa what happens when she stops meeting the condition. And the condition may not always be the wig. Tomorrow, it could be money, honesty, obedience, public image, family approval, or silence. And when love depends on conditions that keep shifting, the person being loved starts shrinking just to keep the peace. So the final read is heavy but clear. Lisa does not need to know every secret from Daniel's past to understand that something in the present is not safe. Because Faith's concern fits, the friend's praise fits, the other woman's warning fits, Daniel's nervous answers fit, and his reaction to the wig fits too well to ignore. And maybe the biggest tragedy is that Lisa wanted the wig removal to prove she could be accepted as herself, but instead it revealed that Daniel may be more comfortable loving a version of Lisa that is covered, controlled, and useful. Daniel may never admit what Lisa fears, and honestly, expecting someone to confess their own bad motive is one of those charming human plans that deserves a tiny tragic trophy, but Lisa may not need the confession anymore, because the pattern is already speaking, and if Daniel's love only feels strong when Lisa looks the way he wants, gives what he needs, ignores what hurts, and keeps making his life better, then the question is no longer whether he was disgusted by the wig. The question is whether he was ever prepared to love the woman underneath it.